What if the best event feedback isn't in your post-show survey, but in the moment someone walked out of your keynote early? What if every facial expression, every pause, every place they hovered told a story you're not collecting? If that makes you a little uncomfortable, well, it should, because that's where events begin there.
Welcome to the Events Demystified podcast, where we demystify the world of in-person, virtual, and hybrid events, AV production, and AI technology by sharing practical tips, tricks, and strategies to help your event succeed. This podcast is brought to you by Treefan Events, a woman-owned boutique event production agency that caters to event professionals, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We specialize in AV and AI education, integration, automation, and implementation, all based on our Fit for Events framework, which focuses on futuristic AV production, innovative AI technology, thriving audiences, and empowering behind-the-scenes teams. And your host, Anka Platon Treefan, with over 2 decades of hands-on experience in event production, event management, and now AI technologies and cybersecurity.
Welcome back to EventsDemystified podcast, the podcast where we challenge the defaults, question we've always done it this way mindset, and unpack what really moves people before, during, and after an event. Today's conversation is for the strategist in you, the one who knows there's more to audience feedback than numbers on a dashboard or checkboxes on a form. It's for anyone who's tired of guessing what worked and what didn't, and is ready to start designing based on actual behavior, not just feelings. And yes, we will be talking AI, but not the hype, the real tools, real ethics, and real strategy. For that, joining me today is someone who's been in events longer than most people have been attending them. Nick Borelli is the director of marketing at Zenus, where he helps event professionals use ethical AI like facial analysis to design better experiences. He's been in the event industry since the age of 14, contributing in over a dozen roles around the event ecosystem and also across the globe. Nick teaches PCMA's Enhancing Events with AI course, speaks internationally and nationally, and co-hosts the Production Value Matters podcast. He's also a regular contributor to major event associations and an advocate for innovation through design thinking. And underneath all that, he's just wildly curious about what makes people tick and how we can turn that into better design. And without further ado, let's welcome Nick to the stage.
Hi, it looks like I've been busy based on your description of me, so that's great.
Well, it sounds like you're 100 years old, so
I know.
wait for that.
I struggle with that stuff a lot. There was a point in my career where I used to do the other way. I was so young in events, and I would skew things like I was a little bit older than I was, especially when I was taking a lot of people's money. Now I think I need to go the other way and remove some of that stuff from my bio about the fact that first event I worked on was in 1996. So yeah, I need to downplay that stuff moving forward.
It's funny you say that because I found myself for the longest time, it's important to have experience, but now too much experience seems to not be necessarily sought after. Everyone wants the fresh minds and innovative minds. For some reason, people with our experience don't have that, or something were considered old school or something. I don't know. I was thinking about that too. All these years of experience, they're not really in my advantage right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about the tech bubble boom of the 90s, and then people be like, how old are you? And I'm like, oh, never mind.
And you have those millennials staring over and Gen Zers looking at you like,
I'm the first year of being a millennial.
Same, we're probably the same age, so
81.
82 here. Yeah, so definitely right there. But you have the Gen Zers looking at you when you talk about things from back in our days, and you're like,
yeah, I remember going like this with a phone. I could still use my phone too. So right in the middle. I like the Xennial age group. I think it's a real thing as far as micro generations. Some of that stuff is esoteric, but the exennial thing is real. It's very valuable, and unlocking them. I used to create a lot of personas. And when you understand that like the exennial one is someone who is like rooted in nostalgia, but also able to move quickly now, I think it's a useful grouping.
I usually like to start our conversation with an icebreaker, so we jump straight into it. And for some reason, my eye is like tearing up. I'm not crying, I promise. Nick did not make me cry yet. But before we get into ethics of reading people's faces with AI and whatnot, as we mentioned, you've had quite a bit of experience in events. I want to go back to the time when you had your very first gig. And be honest, don't make it up like it was some fancy shit.
No, it was nothing. It was not even remotely fancy. I worked at a amusement park in the catering division, and I worked where they would have shop picnics. These are corporate events, but really they're like manufacturers' shop picnics. I had to go in and interface with the client, make sure all of their buffets were organized, run things, and ask if they needed another keg for their. So it was like, it's food, it's beverage, it's an event sort of. There people look forward to all year round, and it was one of the times of the year that everybody in that group was one of their best days. That's what I think I got hooked on. I got hooked on people coming together, lots of anticipation, joy, all of those things. And I have so much grace for people whose jobs are around people that are on their worst days. I have a neighbor who's a police officer. He just sees people on their worst days. I generally see people on their best days. I think that's as strong as I'm built. I'm okay with it. I really like that part where everything's happening. Like I was putting on events while there was roller coasters happening and people crying and throwing things and security and this and loud noises. And I'm like, this is great. I can see through it and I can see people, and I really like watching people. So for me, it was like, I just got hooked on the energy. And I've had all these different roles in all these different arenas around events, but I've never strayed from events.
Was that your summer job or postgraduate you were in it?
In Pennsylvania, it was a summer job because for 14-year-olds, that's all you could do at that time. I started working for a catering venue. And when I was 16, I started working full time there. I worked for different event companies where I was in like food and beverage, and I was always in the operations side. And then eventually one of the people I worked for was like, clients really like, you're affable. Like you should be in the front of the house. People like you. So can you fill in for this salesperson? Like just be the person in between them and the client. And then I moved into sales in that environment. And then in the early 2000s, I was really interested in web design. I'm like always the only person in the room who didn't go to college. My dad has 2 master's degrees. My brother's a triple major. Like they're super into college. I was doing web design on the side in the 90s.
They probably make you more money than them.
For sure. I bought my own cars and cash because I built the Oldsmobile dealership's website in my town. I built my high school's first website. I was building websites while working in events, and they didn't have that. They're like, you can go to college for this. You already work for a marketing company as a consultant. They don't teach this already, so you'd be behind. It didn't seem worth it. So I started building websites for bridal shows. First one I did, and I really understood the business. And what I found, the 2 things I liked about it was 100% churn rate. Think about it. You get married, you don't go back to the bridal show. So they spend a ton of money on marketing because they churn everybody.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I like that from a marketing perspective. And then the other thing is that they don't compete with each other. The Charlotte and the Atlanta and the Philadelphia show, no one goes to all 3. So I created a template for marketing for bridal shows, and I could make it very inexpensive. And I was able to do most of the things myself and made it pretty high profit margin. So I would sell it to these different bridal shows of like, I can take care of all your marketing. I have this all pretty much figured out. I started speaking on web design for event organizers because that was the thing I was doing. And eventually I did more digital marketing over time than sales. I got rid of sales completely. I've had a chance to work for event organizers, production companies, event entertainment companies, catering companies, venues, all kinds of stuff. And it's fun. Like it's all one thing to me, experience design.
I love it. There's definitely a lot of weight to that. And I think that's when you embrace this new world we're living in, having that as your backdrop, you draw a lot of wisdom and intel. But I would like to switch to today's times, to where you're at and how you're contributing to the event industry in a different way. Before we get into that, it's important to touch on something I keep coming back to. We've gotten very comfortable when it comes to events to measure all the wrong stuff, like registration numbers, badge scans, email clicks. Those are vanity metrics in a lot of cases. But what really matters is how people behave, how they feel, what they gravitate towards, and what they avoid, what they lean in, and what they want to check out more or less. So, as a premise, as we're diving into this conversation today, what do you think are the biggest missed opportunities when it comes to using attending behavior data to design better events? And why do you think we keep avoiding that?
I think they're connected. I've done so many different go-to-marketing strategies for technology companies primarily, but other companies that are aimed at the event organizer. So I've done deep research on event organizers with different groups, breaking down what makes them tick. I have this concise premise: event organizers aim not to fail. When your sole goal is not to fail, it's the moves that you make and the actions that you make that actually dictate what your behaviors are. They try not to fail, which means they don't take risks. And there's lots of good reasons why they don't. I want to validate all of this stuff. And there's not blame, and this isn't like I'm better or smarter. I think that the ecosystem is bad, and all of it needs to change in order for there to be radical innovation. But I think trying not to fail means that you use behavioral data in order to validate your premise. And that sort of bias means that you're only measuring things that will
Confirm what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Sounds like
you
Facebook political landscape right now.
2017, I'm doing presentations on Cambridge Analytica, and I was the keynote speaker at this event for MPI in Canada. I was talking about the idea of confirmation bias and like how powerful confirmation bias is amongst the cognitive biases. To me, we're living in an age of confirmation bias. All of our problems are weaponized algorithmic ways to distribute pleasure via confirmation bias. Everyone's in a bubble. It's all echo chambers. Everyone feels like they're right, which feels good. And I think you're dead on.
Until you meet the other side that feels like they're also right, that kind of destroys this worldview concept that what do you mean they're right if I'm right? We can both be right. So then who's right?
That's right. The answer is nuance. The answer is gray. The answer is it depends. That stuff is murky. It's not black and white. And it takes a lot of discipline. But before all that, you have to be in a position where you're like, I could be wrong. What do I know? And you have to be open to that your hypothesis is not something that is anything more than an educated guess. Digital marketers for the last 20 years really have been pushed in many instances out. And the ones that are there now believe in this stuff. Like that works like a machine. They put out their first PPC ad. It's not that good. They learn from it. The A wasn't as good as the B. The C ends up being better. And they just keep getting better. But we don't do that. We put it out on a pass-fail, binary, linear way of thinking where we put out some design and we say it better not fail. Either it was successful, and if it's successful, then I don't want to rock the boat. I'm going to do that next year. Or it's a failure and you go into a spiral of depression and you don't do that again, you do the opposite. And it's very binary. And what I like, and I think that the missed opportunity is thinking iteratively, thinking about process, thinking about improvements in the 5-10%, not in the 100%. If this didn't work, there's no bad events. There's no bad designs. There's designs that can be improved on. But your event never really fails. It's an opportunity to learn.
As your fire festival.
It's in the same vein, though. You got to move quickly and do that. But yeah, I say all that.
It is interesting because going back to those vanity numbers and metrics that, as you mentioned, confirms this confirmation bias. When do you think the industry might be ready to go beyond just that and then really, really look, as we both are interested in what does the attendee behavior looks like? What is that data? And how can we design around it? That also seems a little scary because there's a lot of data collected on us, but when there's too much data, there's this sentiment of overwhelm. There's too much, right? This is where
Yeah.
AI could actually come really helpful.
Yeah, sorting the data out with AI, what's in it for me, definitely one of the more exciting ways that you can use specifically generative AI in event design. In the course that I do, I talk a lot about boiling it down to the things that are valuable, but also taking all the information that you do collect and putting it through a bunch of different constraints. I want to know the top 5 ways based on all of the behavioral data and attendee feedback that I can grow revenue from my event. I ask that question of the data and I get those back. I also want to know, what are the 5 low-hanging fruits? What are things that I can change that would make a big impact that don't cost me any money? There's always those. And then the other one I frequently do is, where did we violate our mission, vision, and values? The chicken not being dry, okay, it was a little dry, okay, I'll take that, but it's not my mission unless it is. I've been to catering conferences, so I guess sometimes it is, but for the most part, you want to know where you are crossing the line. And your line may differ. So I ask a lot of questions around vision, mission, and values of AI, of data, because that's my North Star. And that ends up being the differentiation moving forward. Is I don't want to do that. And everything in my events, I want them to fulfill my organizing principle for my event and also my mission, vision, and value as an organization.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you have to ask big questions.
Yeah. It's funny because going back a little bit to just a quick example, as you gave, of analyzing data, past data, especially with Gen AI, which is so easy to do these days. But I actually, this morning, I was running a expense report on a bunch of freelancers that I work with. And up until today, I didn't want to get into those numbers because there's a lot of rows, a lot of data. And to really, at a granular level, figure out how much, what hours, what percentage of increase in rates and fees paid, all of that. I just didn't want to dissect it. There's so much work. It's time to get it done because it's middle of the year. I ran all these reports through a friendly ChatGPT bot and I got it all done in no time. I was like, this was really easy. Actually, I don't know why I procrastinated for so long. If it wasn't for this tool, it would still not be done unless I hire a bookkeeper to do it for me. And I've done that in the past. I wouldn't want to get into those numbers. It's just too painful to look at that and how many rows there are, right? But now it's like, oh, this was such an easy job for AI. There's no question asked. A lot of web professionals that I talk to, they don't even think about AI to be their support system until they have this huge, big task to accomplish, when it can be all these micro tasks that can be done, right? And that goes back to some of the attendee behavior data to design better events. You could use what you have and still generate some really good insights and takeaways and then act upon, because you have to take steps. Just because you do it doesn't mean that it's going to get done by itself. You have to do something with that now.
Yeah, that's something that we talk about frequently in my role. There's really no value in collecting data unless you know what you're going to do with the outcome. So to me, I think about it like forks in the road. At the end, there's going to be a fork in the road, and it's going to say, based on your goals, you want to go right. Do you know what you do next?
Right.
And if you don't know what you're going to do with that information, then don't even bother. Only collect and only focus on things. And there's instances where I've talked to groups where they collect information on the food and beverage of the venues. Meanwhile, they move the venue every year.
Right. It's like, are you putting this in a database for your general knowledge? Are you going to do something with it? Or what's the purpose for this, right?
Like, you're not going to be working with them next year. So how much of
Unless you really want to create a database and then you can, I don't know, do something with it, right?
Absolutely. It depends on your goals. And that's why the onboarding of data collection is a lot of questions. And most of the time we work with people and they're just like, just tell me what I get. Every person we deal with is totally different. We have all these conversations with people, and then I take the transcripts, anonymize them, and come up with the big findings of where people are at based on all these transcripts. And it's the same question. So there really isn't a lot of variance. And I think that's just where we're at with data in the events world, is that everyone has been asked to have a really excellent gut because that's all there has been. So they've relied on the guts so much that they think it's truth, when the reality is it's still feelings. It's mostly right. But the difference between mostly right and actually right is huge. We find things all the time that are not necessarily what people would expect, because there's nuance and granular looking at things is where you get 5% better, 10% better. And that's the game. It's not about just, is this good or bad? It could always be better.
Absolutely. There's also this narrative that personalization doesn't scale, but I think that can also be very much lazy thinking. Just like, for example, fitness. If I want to train for a competition, I need to track my macros, recovery, lifts, water. There's no guess. There is a certain level of science to all this process. And yet in events, we still treat every audience the same and wonder why nothing really sticks. So what kind of data should we be paying closer attention to if we actually want experiences that feel personalized, even when we're serving thousands of attendees?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the scale of your event, and if your event's goal are to exponentially increase and just get bigger and bigger. I think there's a lot of events that have that goal. I don't know if that necessarily will survive forever, like the mega shows being more than a few of those in every arena. That said, one of the easiest personalizations you can do in the earliest phases of events is in event marketing. You can determine when people register, what types of people register when, and what messages they relate to very easily with AI. I was working with an association on that and discovered all these patterns. And that's what you want to look for. I want to find a pattern that shows which groups of people, based on the information we gather at registration, are registering in what periods of time. And then from there, we can discern either best ways to personalize the messaging for them. And what turned out to be the case in this one was people who were, I mean, there was a bunch of different trends, but like people who were association members for 10 years or more, or had been to the show at least, like it was like 7 times in the first month during like that early bird process. These are easily the most likely people to convert. So it's like, why are we shotgunning all these marketing messages to everyone when most of the people aren't going to register in the first month? They're just not gonna. But those people will. So just segment those people out, talk to them individually, and set your first point of all the phases of the event, the first contact you have, off on the right foot. We're going to talk to you about you. We're going to say, we can't do this event without you. You come every single year, the backbone of our community. We need you there. And we need you to sign up now and watch what happens. And if you do that, you start to realize that every phase has an opportunity for personalization. You try to think about it all at once, or all in the engagement, or all in the design, but really it's at every single phase. The personalization that takes place in the midst of the event, which is most of the stuff that people are interested in, really comes down at looking at the presentations, if it's a content-based event, and determining, do you have content that is all broad? Because I'm telling you, most of it is. And you look at it and it's like intermediate, everybody. And you're like, well, then it's aimed right at the middle. And everyone else has to do the work to translate it to be about them. There should be sessions aimed at groups that are underserved, that don't have a lot of people in them, but have most of the people in that group. What happens is you cut out the lowest attended presentations. The reality is you're not looking who is there and what their engagement level. They're a highly engaged small group, and that small group has a lot of things in common. That's your growth potential. That session might be all they need because it was so laser focused on their needs. But we just grade everything on the average and the middle in like 5-point scales, and it makes everybody just a number. And if you're not in the middle, then nothing's for you.
Yeah. And then when you're trying to serve the middle, the average, then you serve no one, because you might have like 2 different audiences. They're like either here or there, and you're just aiming here, and you're not making anyone happy. So that's when you're like, your ratings is like, why is everything always this way? Maybe it's because of this reason that you just gave. How do you get then to know your audience beyond the data that you collect? Is there any tips that you might want to throw in?
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to ask questions in a post-event survey. You can ask all year round. You can ask a single question every week in your emailers. You'll watch how much more engagement you get out of a single question than you would with 20 right after they had to leave town and go to a conference for 3 days.
Yeah, I love that. People think of surveying their audience either post-event or during the registration process. And most people just want to register. They don't want to fill out your entire survey of 100 questions that you really want to segment your audience. So if you can find different creative ways, as you said, like post that registration, now you're going to start segment based on some of those engagement. You're still going to send me emails, 100 of them before the event starts. Might as well use that as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, your know before you go could have a question about what kind of places off-site do you want to go to the most? And maybe that data, you could use it in the push notification in the app, or to give your sponsors an opportunity to know that this is the kind of thing that people are looking for. They're all clues. Like, I don't know a source of data that I don't like black and white. I like them all. Even the ones that you said that were vanity metrics, while I mostly agree with that, I think they're weak mostly because that's all that's being used. Mm-hmm. They would be anecdotal clues that would help illuminate passive or objective data collection in other ways. If you lean on them as the only source of truth, then yeah, they're pretty bad. But they're very valuable in being able to punctuate like statements that you're like, this is happening, I don't know why. And then you get some kind of anecdotal context that's valuable. So asking more questions more often, as opposed to asking questions all at one time, is the trick I would do. It's about dialogue with your community. It's not about some sort of checkbox. I sent the survey, check. If you're really curious, you're always asking questions.
100%. But most event planners fall into the category of check boxers. They want to check all their boxes.
Yeah, it feels good. I'm in my project management software, whatever. I'm checking boxes. It feels excellent. And the other thing is that I think most event organizers are tasked with 11 things and given time for 10. Or 8.
So checking boxes is important, but as you said, the next layer up is really that curiosity that you speak of, which goes beyond how many to-do things can you check off your list today.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, it could be still one checkbox, but just replace send survey with the broader strategic thing, which is understand my audience. And you're never going to really check that, but you're going to do work on that every day. It's not like exercise. You did it one day, you checked it off, and you're done. It's a daily thing. It is a process and a lifestyle
thing. Yeah.
Curiosity is a lifestyle. It would be very difficult to fake it, especially with AI, which can satisfy our questions. We have to be really good and really curious. That's the input level of generative AI, is us. So we're not going to get better at processing information. AI is definitely better at that. But asking the right questions, having good taste, knowing when to stop. There's all these like human qualities that are really excellent that I would double down on in the future.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the elephant in the room: facial authentication, facial recognition, facial analysis, and privacy. I mean, there's so many different names to label this by. And you work with a tool that reads expressions, energy levels, sentiment, and that's powerful. But it also can make people pause. I have had experiences where I was onboarding a facial authentication tool for registration to make it easy, and people pause. They're like, how are you using this data? Well, we're not using it. We're not collecting it. So how do you talk to organizers about using this type of AI ethically? What's the line really between insight and intuition, and who should be drawing that?
Yeah, those are great questions. And they're the things I deal with 24 hours a day. I did the same session 5 times with different groups in Montreal for PCMA. It was around data privacy. I was trying something different I've never done before, kind of a Trojan horse. I scripted with a woman named Michelle Bruno, who I've known for years. I've done this in a couple different arenas. And what we did is we had this back and forth where I was talking about facial recognition. I was explaining all the things you can do with it, which the people there didn't know. I can show you how to build an app that would be able to determine, based on scraping, who is at a conference in any given city, where they live, and who the 10 highest net worth people are, and how much time they are going to be away from their homes, based on social media information, Zoom info, and facial recognition.
And check your background check to see if you're a criminal or not.
Yeah, I was taking investors, trying to see if you wanted to invest in my home invasion app. I was doing this on purpose. I was trying to creep them out, which admittedly I have not had as a goal in presenting before. And then halfway through, I was like, I just want to let you know I'm with you. There's a lot of areas around facial recognition that creeps me out a lot. I'm going to show you how to protect yourself and how to do this. I gave them more information on how to do better. Then I said, do you guys want to see what facial analysis can do based on the emotional roller coaster you just went on for the last 30 minutes? And I showed them their sentiment data starting off like, this is going to be great. This is fun. I really want to know about, oh no, this is scary. This is creepy. Okay, maybe this guy's not such a bad guy. I did it over and over again, showing them a predictable designed journey. And I told them the real presentation is designing experiences around an emotional journey. I want you to feel this to get you to go here. That's how design will be moving forward. Facial recognition on one side, especially for registration, going faster. Even Mobile World Congress was sued for that. A lot of what we do at Zenus is a pivot away from that. So it is basically around creating a line. And with that, you get limitations. I'll show you a parallel of what two different technologies can do. If you had a trade show booth and you had facial recognition, I can tell you how many times you came to the booth. I can also, if they're deployed all over the show, how many times you go to the bathroom, how many times you're talking to people based on other databases I could tie into who are left-leaning, who are progressive with their values. I could maybe bar entry to people. Madison Square Garden, if you're in an active lawsuit and have any role within those companies, you're barred entry. Taylor Swift uses it to make sure that people who are stalking her can't come in. For Madison Square Garden, they want to be petty. Okay. For security reasons, Taylor Swift doesn't want to have stalkers there. Fair. For the booth thing of knowing how many times specific people come into your booth, do they know that? Did they opt in? Do they want? That's a grayer line. So what we do with facial analysis is it has a lot of limitations.
Before we continue, I want to give a shout out to the team at TreeFan Events. We are not just an event planning and production agency. We are focused on integrating innovative AV solutions, AI strategies, and wellness-focused practices through our Fit for Events framework. Whether you're planning live, virtual, or hybrid events, the team at TreeFan Events is here to provide personalized planning, strategic design, and seamless technology management to ensure everything runs flawlessly. And now, we are offering AI-powered workshops to help you grow your business, build stronger teams, and elevate your events to the next level. If you want to learn more about how the team at TreeFan Events can help make your event unforgettable, visit treefanevents.com.
How is facial analysis different from facial authentication?
Great.
I think it's like three different things that I don't know how much they intersect or overlap.
Yeah, they're very different. Facial analysis doesn't take photos or video.
Right.
It is exclusively doing high-speed mathematics and object recognition, creating aggregated, anonymous, median trend data. So there's no you in there.
There's a bunch of pixels.
1 meg of data up an hour.
Yeah.
That's 1/10 of a photo up an hour. Massive number files is all we get on the raw data. And then it's interpreted based on AI training. But it is only trained on objects that it designates as one of two, a face or not a face. It doesn't know, because it's not recording, who that face is. It's just doing math. And once it's identifying a face, and it can do hundreds of faces at a time, 5 times per second, everything that's in its grid, it measures the changes taking place. So it knows movement, and it also knows, based on training of all faces, based on this source called Fairface, one of the biggest banks of facial data that exists. Exactly that, yes.
Mm-hmm. How would it know energy levels? Sentiment is attached to expressions, I suppose, but energy levels, that's a curious one.
So what we're looking for, and we're really big on not over promising on what we can do. We can't tell you jealous.
I know that if I'm tired, you can see it on my face.
Yeah. And it's funny, we're not even looking for tired.
If I'm bored, you might be able to see it on my face.
That's right. The magic of what we do and what makes it different is if we were looking at you, it wouldn't even be as good as flipping a coin as far as the likelihood of it being correct as one individual. There's so much variance in how we emote. But when you measure a sample, a whole group of people, we need a minimum of like 30 people in range. We could have hundreds, but 30 minimum. What we do from that is, against time, which has whatever stimuli is in that area, there's a validation curve that takes place. For instance, if someone told a joke in English and there was someone there who was German who didn't speak English and they don't laugh, it wasn't a positive sentiment experience. 29 of them did that. In a median data, that gets sorted out as an outlier. So what it's looking for is validation across groups of people. That's why our use cases are primarily in events or in big areas like airports. We need a lot of people to do that. And that is a limitation of the technology. We're not looking for all kinds of different sentiments. And we're not looking for anyone's sentiments specifically because no one can. That's junk science. What we're looking for is a big bucket that we're calling positive energy. So it's any one of, it could be elation or leaning in or like positive markers in a bunch of different ways. It could be wows or eyebrow raises, a bunch of those things. And when you validate that in the whole group, it codifies that as taking place in that moment. The energy is really positive sentiment against time.
And then you have a lot of people in that argue like, well, that's a little bit of a negative energy.
Yeah.
And you already have that as a collective. You can dissect.
We don't really have
daily.
negative, but we do. We have troughs of positive. So we have an absence of positive. We only promise what we can deliver. We can show you audience energy trends in positive and where they decline. It's nuanced and very specific in the terminology that I'm using because I don't want to overpromise. We can see jokes all of a sudden. Someone tells a joke, people laugh. We can also see predictable session decline. And then Q&A kind of pops up a little bit again. So like there's all these trends which we validate frequently in what we measure, and we use it for operational goals, ROI in exhibiting and sponsorships, and in sessions. Those are the primary like three big groupings of where we deploy this. I'll give you an example that you wouldn't have seen without the technology. Booth, think about like 40 by 80, big booth, walls all around it. All you can see was one window in. Sensors on the outside, sensors on the inside. End of day one. Our information is in real time, but no one uses it that way. They could, but they don't. So end of day one, they go, we had a really low turnout inside our booth. Now, in the binary way of events, they said this one of two things. Either our design was bad and we need to do a whole new design, or this is a bad show and we should pull our money out, not support it. It's not good for us. Both were untrue, because they're both binary and they're both not lacking of nuance. What we were able to determine and ask a question, we're like, there's a big outlier here. Outside your booth, about 80% male. Inside your booth, about 70% female. This is based on AI learning on our demographics. Like that basically just shapes of faces and structure. Median. So if anything isn't 100%, we don't know, but it's still median. And with that information, we were asked that question, why do you think that was? And they're like, well, we have, it's all this signage all around it and it explains what our products are. We have the window. You can see people doing yoga when you go around there. We were like, wait, stop. The only thing that they can see inside is people doing yoga. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, maybe the guys didn't want to do yoga. They were like, oh, we didn't even think. Okay, fine. They had a design bias. They moved the mat to the back. They moved something else to the front, 300% increase the next day. So it wasn't a bad booth. It wasn't a bad design. It was just a tweak that cost no money.
It's what could you see through the keyhole before you even made a decision if you wanted to go in or not?
Yeah, they thought it was a yoga activation.
Yeah.
And there was enough guys at this tech show that were like, no, thank you. I'm not going to get back up again. This is not good. I'm wearing a suit, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that clarity of nuance of being able to cut through that wouldn't have come up in a post-event survey. It was just passively collected. No one was voting. I don't like this. So nuance is valuable for sure. Also, it's just clues. Like we didn't know the answer. We had to ask questions.
Yeah.
We were like, this is an outlier. This is different. What do you think about this? And we have those conversations using the organizer's understanding of the space. So it's very interesting having these kinds of conversations every day. What we're doing is we're finding out we're like Sherlock Holmes, collecting all these clues, and we're trying to figure out what happened.
It's kind of like solving a mystery, right?
Yeah, and if that's fun for you, then it's excellent.
Exactly. So going back to the top of the question, if anybody that's listening and they're unsure in the way that you would define, say, or maybe separate one from the other, we're talking about facial recognition, identification, and analysis. How would you define those that they're separate or basically define as they are?
Sure. Facial recognition recognizes individuals, collects personal identifiable information, and ties it to a database. Facial analysis only aggregates information, numerical information around faces into no photo, no video, no personal identifiable information into a trend report about a specific area. There is no you in there.
And I think facial authentication then uses facial analysis to check into a venue. I'm sure the Madison Garden is using facial recognition, as you said, but like check in into your session. I think that's how it's defined to be facial authentication, which basically just scans based on a facial analysis to let you in.
No,
or would you say that's different?
Recognition, because it has to know that it's you as an individual, and it's using your biological markers to do that.
Could it be using registration data where it's just like you would assign a signee that's registered for this event, you're signing into this keynote?
If you give them PII or biometrics, you're basically creating a lock and using that lock to unlock that. But that's still, it's using video or photo in order to do that. And it's using database, and it's the trafficking of personal identifiable information. I say PII so much, I don't even say the thing. But yeah, so that is more of a form of facial recognition because it's using those biometrics as a lock. I think there's use cases for it. What we're doing is for people who are more cautious around data privacy and want to get information around understanding an audience, but not understanding individuals. There's limitations to that. We can't tell you how many CEOs came into this booth. That's, I guess, the con of it. And the pro of it is that from the CEO's perspective, they're not being watched in that way. There's just trends. And it's a line. Basically, what we've established with this technology is data insights that allow you to make better decisions. In the US, there's definitely people who come to us who want to know way more than we have technology designed to tell them. And we're just not a good fit for you. But in large shows where you're concerned about opt-ins and data collection, we're as safe as you can be. We're GDPR compliant because no personal identifiable information is collected. We deploy in Europe, Canada, Australia, California. We do better in those places because it's a requisite. In places in the US, they're like, we just want to know everything. And we're like, all right, but then we're not a good fit. If you're collecting information from post-event surveys and that's all you're using, we're going to level you up big time. And at the same point, we're going to protect the attendees because there is no way to extract them out of there. They were just aggregated into a mathematical trend report in pure numbers.
I love it.
The founder's a PhD in mathematics, so I'm the event person and he's the math guy. But suffice to say, that's really what we do is math. We're a high-speed math company.
So if we were to use the data and apply design thinking with a data lens, right? And I guess going back to something that I said even in the beginning, if we stop designing events based on what worked last year and started designing based on actual behavior patterns, what would that shift look like from planning to execution? And how does design thinking then change when you layer AI into it and behavior data from the very start?
Yeah, ultimately, that's my end goal is I want to work in a world where design thinking is used everywhere. It means that innovation goes from nice to have to need to have, and it makes the competitive landscape hinge on creativity and innovation, not on being able to replicate what you've done in the past. If you took somebody 100 years ago and dropped them into a trade show now, other than the screens everywhere, it's about the same thing.
What are they doing trade shows 100 years ago? I think they were still trying to find the West.
Yeah, if you walked around, you would be like, oh, it's a big grid. It's a big cattle call.
It's a Saturday market.
Yeah. And think of all the technology we have for digital content delivery, and we're still doing lectures where everyone sits passively and absorbs it. Like if you cut out a rectangle and you go like this, you're basically watching YouTube, but you had to pay for an air flight and get a babysitter. What a drag, right?
Eat some bad trade show food.
Yeah. In a world where design thinking is a requisite and culturally part of how we design events, what you find is that in the same way there's a culture in technology for risk taking, the culture of no risks at any cost would go away. If you've already done it, it's done. Your competition can scrape it and replicate it. You have to create new things and validate them. You're going to have to use technology and data collection to test what you're doing. But ultimately, that makes every risk you take less of a pass-fail risk and more of a iterative learning process. So once that culturally happens, the understanding that Risks aren't around, I need to do this big wild idea, and if it doesn't work, I'm out of a job. Instead, if it doesn't work exactly the way I thought it would, how does it work? What are the implications of that? And how can I build upon that? So it has to be at the highest level of organizations. You need to empower your organizers to be creative, and they need to be empowered to learn from what they're doing and have a culture of not reporting on did we succeed or not, but reporting on what did we learn. It has to happen at the top, and they have to be empowered to do that. And if they are, the right people will fall into place. And AI comes in to validate those things. It helps to understand personalization and what expectations are from your attendees, and to assist in creativity. It should be there to, what if this? What would this look like? How would I do that? Be able to give you the tools you need in order to build something that's never been built before. AI is excellent at telling you how to build something that already has been, but working with it in a dialogue capacity in order to ideate is where it's really excellent. Most people don't use it like that.
Absolutely. I totally agree. From a personal perspective, I think that IMAX has come such a long way in deploying design thinking for their trade show. From your experience and having been to so many different conferences and trade shows, who else do you feel like they're really doing a good job in that arena?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, IMAX is the superlative in our industry for a lot of things. And you're right on the design thinking for sure. We're going into this year for Vegas. This will be our 4th year for Zenus, measuring different elements of their event. It was our 3rd year in Frankfurt. I get most of my inspiration outside of the B2B bubble. Mostly because if you find your inspiration from the same sources, you're more or less recycling, you're going to get back to slightly better version of doing the same, rinse, wash, and repeat. So it's funny. I like to get my inspiration from B2C and how those organizations are building their events. I saw an event recently, Fanatics Fest at Javits, and it is Lance Fedrickson, who previously at Reed has built a new company, and it's Comic-Con for sports and sports memorabilia. It's like, wait a minute, why isn't this already a thing? It had viral moments. The people who were just there for trading cards were there for that. The people that were there for the autographs were there for that. The people that were there with families wanting to do things, there was things for them. And it seemed like it was just, I don't know. I've not experienced FOMO at that level in quite some time. And it was the idea of taking something from over here, established Comic-Cons, understanding of fan behavior and saying, where's the gap? Seeing these personalized journeys of influencers in sports and seeing the influencers being as excited to be attendees as attendees were. I'm like, okay, this is onto something. Recently, that event has been really inspirational for me because I'm like, what is there, the blank of this that could be applied to that? Can we take the excitement of these B2C events where they're about fan experiences? Are you also a fan of, if you're a nurse, of healthcare? Like, can you still take that energy? Like, can you dream that you can have that kind of feeling and apply it to a different area? I think so. So we have to be able to be like higher aspirations and not just be like, well, I saw this other dentistry conference and they had this thing. It's not a big leap, right? You got to swing for the fences.
Right. Innovation usually happens and has happened in the history of our world when you take something that's completely unrelated from a different area and then apply it to this new subject matter. And you're like, okay, how can this work here? And that's how you build something new. That's how innovation happens.
Yeah. It's funny, like sessions, I work with a lot of education people on conferences and they bemoan the lowered attention spans. And I'm like, why are people watching like streaming podcasts of Joe Rogan for 3 hours? Because what you're saying is how people are now. That flies in the face of that, right? I mean, like, first off, that's actually a real question I have.
Me too. I'm like, I have not had the answer to that. But then I can also get lost in some of Andrew Huberman's podcast.
I can dissect what people are finding out about it. Do our panels at our sessions, are they steeped in authenticity? Are they taking risks? Are there people in the room who don't agree with each other at all?
I'm like, are we bold enough to be okay with panelists disagreeing? They're going to start throwing punches. What's going to happen? Let them disagree.
Yeah, like I see a panel and it's like there's 4 people. By the way, they're all good friends and they know each other. And it's like, I agree with Ned. I agree with Ed. Ted's totally, I'm on the same page. And you're like, then why are you here? I want some dissent. I want another opinion. I want you to challenge. I want to be able to see my point of view represented. And I also want these ideas to battle each other out because it's good TV. It's fascinating. It's energy. It's just a bunch of like, I didn't want to make a deck, so we just did a panel. Ugh. Meanwhile, in other arenas, you see this stuff all the time. You see it in politics. People watch that for hours.
Sports, people watch that for hours.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, he's not saying things to be boring. He's saying probably 30% more than he actually believes about everything because he's trying to create theater. Like he's trying to elicit
A little bit of
emotional
drama.
response. Yeah. We don't have much drama. It's just like a bunch of
No,
people.
because we're afraid of drama. Like drama is like, oh, how do we deal with that? How do we contain it?
Yeah. Yeah. I want a no risk environment where everyone gets to speak their mind, and there needs to be respect.
Yeah.
But if there's respect and everybody's from a different point of view, that sounds great. Like I have
It
in my
doesn't
course,
hurt to be funny.
it doesn't hurt. I have a friend who thinks AI is bad, just black and white. It's bad. It's ruining us. It's terrible. It needs to go away. And it's especially bad as it's used for events. His name is Kevin White. He's a really smart guy, like smarter than me, really smart guy. Been in the events industry for a long time, incredibly intelligent, and he's got good points. I don't fall on the same line. Maybe I'm just more optimistic, whatever it is. But I bring him into my course for my office hours, and we go at it. And he's just like, this is going to do that. I'm like, no, it's not. Things change, the ebb and flow. We have a back and forth. We have respect and very different points of view. It's interesting. If we were to do more of that stuff, just don't be scared, I guess.
Absolutely.
Is the main thing.
I love it. Well, since we're talking a little bit about AI, what's your perspective on where AI is actually heading in the next 5-10 years? I don't even want to throw 20 years there because that sounds like forever. And who knows, we're still going to be around 5-10.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself fitting into that future? And still in events? Are you thinking you're going to do something wildly different? Are you going to be building AI agents for the rest of your life? Or they're going to build themselves? Like, what's this future that you see?
Personally, early 2000s, I was the web guy in events. In the mid 2000s, I was the social media guy. I was going to Estonia talking about Snapchat. I didn't see social media when I was there for 2 years. I was talking about the metaverse nonstop. People ask me, where do you see the metaverse in 10 years?
Yeah, where is the metaverse? What happened to the metaverse?
The biggest thing that is going to change once a bunch of confluences of technology developments happen, including killer apps and also certain types of processing power, is going to be mixed reality. Mixed reality plus AI is going to be a constant stream of the first phase of real post-human life, where everything is augmented. The idea of looking at a rectangle piece of glass in your hand is awkward. One less awkward thing is having your reality augmented constantly and being able to take in all of the data points that you see in a day and give you tons of insights based on your own personal goals. Optimization. I want to know who's got great chicken within walking distance at this price point. That kind of stuff is going to change a lot of things. The root behavioral stuff in humanity, that's the part where I'm really curious in 10 years of where we go. Like, where's this generation? Because I watch my kids be natives on technology and just say they don't type. I don't even know if they know how to spell.
Well, I was having a conversation with someone about this concept. We do a lot of tasks every single day, and we think through those tasks, but we don't really think of it as a task because we're doing it. It's just part of who we are, what we're doing, what we're learned to. But let's think back to like when jogging became an actual, had to be a sport before it kind of turned into this everything, everybody's doing it, so it has no glamour to it anymore. The concept of thinking now being overtaken by AI, will that affect our ability to process and think in the future, where thinking will turn into its own kind of exercise that you have to do to maintain yourself at a certain fitness level mentally? It's kind of like fitness. In order to be fit, you have to work out. That wasn't really part of our understanding because we were walking everywhere. We are active by default. Right now, we're like, get in the car, go here. All the things that we do. I'm sitting on my ass for like 10 hours every single day. So It's this concept about, will AI impact our ability to think to the point where thinking will turn into its own kind of exercise to stay mentally fit?
Yeah, it certainly will change. I mean, even the way I think, at one point I had to start thinking along the lines in computing of like folders and subfolders and that sort of hierarchy of organization. And I can kind of think like that now. And I can think in terms of coding, like open and enclose as far as ideas. And it becomes part of the way you think. Thinking in terms of prompting and creating processes. People have me come in and do sessions on prompt engineering, and I'm not even doing that much of that
I
anymore.
know, I'm like the
It's
same
forming.
boat. People ask about prompting, and I'm like, I actually put together this ebook beginning of last year, and I forgot about it. I'm being asked again about it. Maybe I need to dust it off the shelf. People still need it for some reason.
Yeah.
That is so interesting to me.
Everyone uses those tools at different paces, for sure. For me, if I were you, the ebook becomes training material in the sort of digital twin that I would create. It would be a piece of that. And then you wouldn't give somebody the ebook, you would give somebody the digital twin and
Right.
say, this is an agenic version of me. It has the ability to make decisions along the lines that I would. That's how
But
I
it has
think.
all this database of knowledge and things you can pull from.
Yeah. So if I'm doing it more than once, I'm thinking about it as a process, not as a task. So I'm thinking less about doing task work and thinking about, okay, first, before I do this, is there a way for me to create a process that would have the least amount of moves in order for me to do that? So like in Gemini, I'm creating all these gems or chat GPTs, and like I
Right.
have tons of them and they do different things. All I need is this, and this. I push this into it and it gives me the output every single time because I did hours of training based on what my expectations are. And then I tweak it as it goes. I'm recording everything now because I'm using transcripts of things that I say and things in client. I'm using that all as training material. So like I'm thinking about collecting information. But as far as how we think in the future, all of the things I just said, I wasn't thinking like that 2 years ago.
Right.
So I think we're going to change the way that we think, and we're going to be thinking about building things. All of us are going to be builders, and we're going to be thinking about building technologies for us, coding our ways through things. I think that's going to be the biggest change. I think that if your job or your livelihood or your identity is centered around knowing things most people don't know, that's going away. Thinking the way you think and the way that you process as an identity and an occupation, whatever, has infinite possibilities. But just, I know something you don't know. It's like, no, you don't. I can find out anything instantly. I can just say it out loud and I know it when I need it. I don't know how to build anything, but I've got YouTube. So I watch a video and I go, okay. Am I better than a master at building that stuff? No, but like pretty close. And I didn't do any work to do it.
Right. It didn't take me 6 years. Will I go and operate on someone? Probably not. I'll stay away from that.
I went to a doctor recently, a neurologist, and I was like, these are all the symptoms. I think I've been having a back and forth conversation for the last week with ChatGPT, eliminating things, doing things, etc. And this is based on both of our dialogue, what we think this is. And then he looked at it and he goes, yeah, that's it. And I'm like, I hope you've got a second job idea. Because like
I just paid you, I don't know, whatever,
to
just go and get confirmation that I was right.
It's not going to last. I don't see the system being around forever. If anyone's trying to future-proof what they do, focus more, in my opinion at least, focus less on how you do it. The tactics that you're doing today won't be the tactics that you're doing tomorrow. Don't worry so much about tactics. Think about how you think about your processes, and think about your mission as a person, because that can last regardless of the technology. My mission is around demystifying technology for people who organize and design experiences. Whatever that technology that seems intimidating, I'm going to make it less intimidating for you. It's going to change all the time. I'm not going to be talking about AI in 2 years, probably, because you're going to all be fine with it. I want to make tools accessible, less scary, and exciting for people, and doing it their way, not just a way. If you have those kinds of missions, and for you, it could be facilitating communities, but if you think it's like checking a box or creating BEOs, it might not be those tactics. The strategy can live on though.
Absolutely. I think that was like our final mic drop moment right there. So this has been definitely a killer conversation. And for anyone listening who wants to go deeper into this, maybe nerd out on facial analysis, ethical AI, or just see what you're working on next, what's the best place for them to find and follow you, connect with you?
Yeah, probably LinkedIn. That's where I find to be the least awful social media platform currently. For now, it's still, I'm passionate. My hobby is my job. So I'm super passionate about it. It's NICKBORELLI. It's just that at LinkedIn. I'm on all the platforms. I generally am in there just sharing information around stuff I'm working on and cool things that I think other people are working on. It's great to be there to be inspired. Most of the time I spend on social media is about absorbing other people's stuff, and 1% is my stuff. I'm a voyeur for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you've been around just like me for a good part of this industry, from analog to digital to AI. We watch it shift, shrink, evolve, expand. And there's definitely a lot of knowledge that you've acquired along the way. And yeah, I love to connect with people that are curious. And even though they know a lot, they are still very curious to learn more.
Those are my favorite.
Just because you've learned things over this period of time, that doesn't make you any expert for what the future brings. You're
Absolutely
still
not.
learning,
We're all
you're
on the
still
same
growing.
journey.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
the
that.
Dunning-Kruger effect is something I'm keenly aware of when I meet people who are like, they think it's all figured out. And it's like, oh, I already figured that out a long time ago.
That
And
was that time. It might not even apply right now in this moment.
I love that I don't know what's coming in 5 years. Like, I'm excited for what I don't know. I'm way more thrilled for the curveballs than I am for the things that I see coming. Let's just keep getting more interesting. And I think you can't deny we're living in interesting times.
For sure. And it's funny also, sometimes I laugh at myself of the plans that I made a few years back or last year around this time, and then things just completely change. You're flexible, you're moving on, and you're adaptable to the times and to what this industry is. I think that's probably also one of those secret weapons. We have to be flexible, adaptable, and open-minded. And sometimes you grow, sometimes you fail, sometimes there's some punches thrown at you.
Yeah.
Right?
A couple of years where we definitely all got punched.
For sure. All the small increments of moving forward, like you're moving forward. Every step takes you into a direction. And what that direction is, well, that's up to you to decide.
I mean, you're probably not going to know all of it, but all you can really do is stay true to yourself and understand why you do what you do. For me, there's a significant part of the world focused on tearing the world apart, and I choose to use my time with people in an industry that brings people together. That's why I do what I do. I think the work we do is good work. If you're not intentionally designing experiences, then you're not fighting the forces who are trying to intentionally separate people. So we could use a lot more people bringing people together.
Well, thank you so much, Nick, for sharing all those tips and insights with our audience. And that's pretty much a wrap for this episode of the EventsDemystified podcast. That was packed, I know. And if you're not already rethinking how you gather, use feedback, use information, think about event design, rewind and take some notes, or use that transcript to build better plans and better event experiences. Big thanks to Nick for dropping so much wisdom on how we think, how we build, and how we measure success in this industry. And if this episode got you thinking differently, do me a favor, send it to someone on your team who still, I don't know, thinks badge scans equal engagement. They really need this. And make sure to subscribe to EventsDemystified podcast and drop a review if you're feeling generous. And until next time, stay smart, stay curious, and stay fit for events. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for listening to the Events Demystified podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with other professionals like yourself. If you're interested in learning more about TreeFan events, including our future AI education talks and workshops, or to see how we can support your next event, book a free 20-minute consultation through the link in the episode notes. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and social media for updates on future episodes, industry insights, AI news and tips, and more. And if you have any topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out.